Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nikhil, and I'll play the MC on this wonderful event today. Warm welcome to all of you. Certainly an exciting occasion as we host today Eric Schmidt, Executive Chairman, Google. Looking at the informal outlook of this event, I assume, in fact I can see most of our guests are in casual attire. So just to depict that, I squiggled a few lines that I would like to read out to you all, and this is how it goes. There will be no neck stiffness, as there is no neck tie. There will be no bending over, as there are no laces to tie. There will be less of hellos, but more of hi. Hear your neighbor say, till we meet again, you won't hear them say goodbye. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we start this beautiful event, but before we formally get started, let us loosen up a bit with some startup comedy from Jamshed from Nimbus. Jamshed Rajan, alias Jammy, describes himself as a wannabe stand-up comedian. He has built 3 startups and now serves as the Chief Products Officer at Nimbus, a free call and messaging application. Can we have the AV, please? Together while I welcome on stage Jammy.
Thank you. As he's already mentioned, my name is Jamshed Rajan. Pretty long name, huh? For somebody 165 centimeters. And that's just the height I'm talking about here, okay? I am Nimbus stand-up comedian. And I want to be Chief Product Officer. Sorry. No. I am Nimbus Chief Product Officer and I want to be stand-up comedian, right? And a very, very, focused, very spirited entrepreneur, okay? And a very persistent entrepreneur. Now you must be wondering, how did Jammy make it to the stage today, right? So about a month back, I had approached the Nasscom guys. I told them, you guys claim that you're helping startups, right? I have a startup, help me. Put me in touch with a few investors. And they did. They put me in touch with a few investors. A week later, the investors came back with some feedback, okay? They told the Nasscom guys, you know what? Jamshed had us in splits. When Jamshed was there presenting his sales pitch, we were rolling on the floor laughing. Right? And the Nasscom guys did with the sarcasm. They said if you can make the investors laugh, you might as well. So that's how I landed up here. And, of course, the 3 failed startups that I have to my credit. If you see all of them best, failed. And you know what? And I'm there where I started. I started with nothing. I have nothing. Right? It would not have been possible had it not been for this wonderful boss of mine, whom I adore. Right? I worked for him for about a year and a half. One day he calls me to his room, makes me sit in the chair, looks right at me in my eye, and says, "You're fired." That made an entrepreneur out of me. And you know what? In my first entrepreneur, I was a huge failure. I bit more than what I could chew. The chewing went on and on. Almost like a flavored undergarment, you know? Right, somebody seems to be agreeing that, yeah, that's true. Flavored undergarments, you completely continue to chew and chew, right? Since we are on the subject of flavored undergarments, let me tell you, it's actually a conspiracy hatched by the women. Okay? To take away the focus of the men from the main act. Flavored undergarments, right? Anyway, you know, in my first startup, I told you I failed, right? And I really love. I believe that the whole world is bound on love, right? I mean, love makes the whole world go around. You guys agree?
Yeah.
Right? And it just so happens that I love money. Right? So I came up with my second startup. Very, very interesting startup. Right? I wouldn't go into the details. But this is how my organizational chart looked like. Right? There were some 15 different positions and I was doing everything. And as a result, my wife always knew where I was going to be. And if you're married, you know that that's a scary thought. That's really scary. And why would I always be in the same place? Because I would always be working in my office. Right? I lost all my friends. I lost no get-togethers, no parties, nothing. I was just focusing on my startup. That's it. That's it. You know what they say? That if you want to lose your true friends, right? Or if you want to find out your true friends, you need to get a sales job. When somebody tells me that, I tell them, come on, start a startup. You would lose your true friends as well. Right? Now in terms of ability to lose friends, a startup ranks equal, if not higher, than selling Amway products. Right? So here I was, working on the startup day in, day out, right? And I had devised a schedule. I stopped drinking water. You know why? Because that meant I had to be away from my desk for about 5 minutes. And I got dehydrated, got admitted in the hospital. This is all true story. Okay? My grandmother comes. Obviously, she has to cheer me up. I'm a little low. And to cheer me up, she recites what she has heard 1,000 times. My sales pitch. Right? And my wife also comes over. I tell her, you know what, you don't need to spend the night with me here. The nurses are there, the doctors are there. She says, no, that's okay. We didn't pay the electricity bill. There's no electricity in the house. This is my chance to have a nice peaceful sleep in the air-conditioned room. Right? So this is what happened. And in this startup, I was in the middle of a nice sales pitch. It was about a year from when I had started this startup. Okay? And I was in the middle of a very, very nice sales pitch. The guy had tears in his eyes. Right? At that moment, he told me, Jammy, can you do this tomorrow? I said, why? Why postpone? It's going on so well. I knew I had nailed that. At that moment he told me, Jammy, you do realize that it's my father's funeral that we are at. That made me thinking. I had been so engrossed in this startup that I had completely forgotten what was happening around me. Right? I decided it was time to take a day off. And how do you take a day off in a startup? The only way to take a day off in a startup is to call in dead. And even then, the boss will ask you, okay, be in the office by afternoon. Right? So I called in dead. In this case, it was just me. So I had to approve it. I took a day off. This one day off became a week off, then a month off, and the whole startup initiative fizzled out. Right? I joined a corporate. I was there for about 2 years. But then again, an entrepreneur can be down temporarily, but he will bounce back, right? Is that you say in Hindi, his kira is there, right, in him. So he wants to bounce back. So after about 2 years in a corporate, I again came up with my own startup, This time, I decided that I'll go with a partner, right? I'll go with a partner. And I decided that I wanted to build a company like Apple. Okay. So I called my partner. He wasn't convinced initially. I told him, you know what, this whole Steve Jobs is fake. Right? Let both of us do it. Let's build another Apple. You be one Steve Jobs. I'll be the other Steve Jobs. Together we would be grammatically correct, plural. Steve Steve Jobs. Right? He didn't believe me. He said, how can we create another Apple? I made him sit. I sat across him. I told him, from Apple, let's remove the amazingly innovative products that they have built. Let's remove it. Okay? Then, let's remove the amazingly loyal customer base these guys have. Let's remove them. What do we have? I asked him. He said, Apple has nothing. I said, precisely. That's where we are right now. Right? Let's start working towards building another Apple. The guy was not convinced. Right? But we'll save that for later. Now, this time I didn't want to make mistakes. See, being an entrepreneur is a lonely life. Right? You make your own mistakes, you're gone. Right? So I didn't want to make the same mistakes I did in my previous 2 attempts. So I went to a bookstore. I thought, let me learn from the experiences of the other entrepreneurs and by buying some books. I went to this bookstore. I spent about 2 hours. There are no good books for entrepreneurs, for running startups. I did find 2 books though. One of them was Pyramid Schemes for Entrepreneurs. Second was fancy, flashy, crazy designations to retain employees. Right? And I bought those books, but I have a problem in their classification. They were kept right in between fiction and non-fiction. In the fantasy section. But anyway, I bought these books. Okay? I came home early to read and understand and learn from others' mistakes. Now, if you're married, you know coming home early to accomplish a task is a myth. Right? Your wife is going to give you some other task. So the moment I sat down with the book, my wife said, hey, why don't you teach your daughter some math? Okay? Now, being a henpecked husband, I said, sure. So I called my daughter Ria. Today she is 6 years old, but back then she was 4 years old. And out of these 4 years, 3.5 years, she had seen me as an entrepreneur. So she had been amply influenced by an entrepreneur. So I told her, or rather I asked her, Ria, what is 2 plus 2? She looks at me. She says, 6. I said, what? She said, looks at me again. She says, 5. I got upset. I scolded her. She started crying. My wife came running and she said, why is your daughter crying? I said, just ask her. I asked her what's 2 plus 2. She first said 6. Then she said 5. My daughter stopped her crying for a while and then said, Mom, I thought father was negotiating. Right? That struck me. So I was not just affecting my life as an entrepreneur, I was affecting the lives of people around me. I was worried. That night, I slept like a baby. And when I say I slept like a baby, I slept for 1 hour and then got up and cried for half an hour. Right? I slept like a baby that night. And that night it occurred to me, if being an entrepreneur is going to be so tough, if running a startup is going to be so tough, I'm going to become somebody else. I'm going to do something else. But I want to still be stuck with entrepreneurs and with the startup because I love that. And I came to the conclusion that I wanted to become an investor. I wanted to become an investor. Investors have an easy life, very easy life. These guys, they play with somebody else's money mostly, right? They get all their work done from somebody else, right? And if they make a mistake, they always have excuses. Do you guys really think there's something called long-term investment? No. Long-term investment is a short-term investment gone bad. Right? And these guys actually can come up with, if I don't know anything about the place where I'm going to invest, I can be called angel investor. I can just classify myself as angel investor. Right? But if I know a little bit to ask 2-3 questions, I'll say, buddy, you know what, I'm a financial investor, once in a while I might ask you 3 questions. Or if I'm going to make that life of that CEO, startup CEO's like hell every day, by poking my nose every day, I would call I'm a strategic investor, right? So guys, this was all what happened in an era when NFS meant need for speed. But today we have Nasscom for startups. That's a new definition for NFS. So guys, please use it as an entrepreneur and I'm sure you'll flourish. And the day you make money, remember me and give me something. Thank you.